This is going to be an interesting one today. This will be an interesting one. This is something that this is in response to a question that I get asked quite a lot from various different coaches, especially when coaches are brand new. Now, everybody's going to have a different indication of what brand new means for them as a coach. Brand new might mean that you've not yet even had your first practice client, or you might consider yourself brand new because you've only been coaching full-time for 1 year. It's not for me to determine whether or not somebody is a brand new coach, because that is subjective and it's completely down to you. However, coaches that consider themselves to be brand new, they often ask me this question. And the question that they ask me is, what should I ask a brand new client? Okay, the very first time I meet with a client. Now, also, I'm going to let you decide whether or not these questions are something that you would like to utilize and use when you very first meet a new client at the stage of discovery call, or once you've got a brand new client and they've just started coaching with you. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you 6 questions that you can ask a brand new client. And the reason why these 6 questions are very powerful questions to ask is because they get to the heart of the problem very, very quickly. They don't fuck about. We don't waste any time. We literally go straight for the jugular and straight for the center of the heart of the conversation, right? We go for the reasons as to why this person has made the decision that seeking a coach and seeking the help of a coach is going to be an empowering thing for them. 6 questions, ladies and gentlemen, 6 questions of the listeners of the Coaching Masters podcast. 6 questions for everybody tuning in live inside of the Coaching Mastery group. Now, as I have mentioned before, even for the podcast listeners, if you have not yet joined Coaching Mastery, type that into the search bar on Facebook, join the group, because I like to interact with our viewers as I'm recording this podcast. So do you feel it would be useful for you to have 6 questions in your back pocket that you know you can pull out and use whenever you need to really get to the heart of what a client needs and why they're there, why they've made the decision to seek out the help of a coach? These 6 questions, they're so straight to the point. They're so direct that they're very, very useful and they work every time. So let's dive into this, shall we? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you these 6 questions. And what I want you to do is I want you to write these questions down, and I want you to practice asking these questions to your new clients. Now, one of the most powerful questions that you can ask a brand new client, and this is the first question that you should ask them, isn't a question that most coaches think about asking, because the question contains that terrifying, dreaded question or dreaded word, why? Now, if you're wondering why I'm saying that, this is something I've spoken about a few times. Now, when it comes to coaching, there are a lot of different versions of coaching. There are a lot of different ideas and different methods, right, when it comes to coaching, or styles. Let's call them styles. Now, there is a purist form of coaching that would say you should never ask your client why, right? You should never use the word why. You should never ask them why. Now, I do understand the thought process behind that. And the thought process behind that the purists really back up is that if you ask somebody why, what they will do is they will justify their actions or justify their thoughts. So let's say, for instance, your client was feeling very down. If you were to ask them, why are you feeling down? Then what you're doing is you're giving them the space to be able to justify the reasons as to why they're feeling down. And therefore, it will, reinforce, right? By answering that question, it will reinforce them feeling down, and it will reinforce the negative emotions that they don't want to be feeling. So a lot of the time, coaches avoid the word why. However, a coaching master doesn't avoid the word why when the word why is used in an appropriate context, okay? For instance, the first question of these 6 questions is, why are you here? Okay? Why are you here? That's a really excellent question to open up with, because there is a reason as to why this person has made the decision that they must now part with their cold, hard cash to seek out a coach, right? So the sheer fact that they're sitting in front of you and they're at a stage in their life where they are willing to not only pay for coaching, but of course they have made the decision that this is something they need. We need to know the reason as to why they have come to that conclusion. We need to know the reasons as to why they are there. Why are they there? Why are they sitting in front of you? Why are you here? Okay, not how are you feeling? What's wrong? Explain it to me. Blah, blah, blah. Diving into the depths of the negative parts of why they have seeked a coach. We are opening that up for opportunity, right? It's open for discussion. It's open for observation, right? It's open for interpretation. It's an open enough question for them to be able to answer completely honestly. But we're not guiding them in any one particular direction. We're not guiding them in either a negative or a positive direction. We're simply leaving it open. Why are you here? And so that gives our client the opportunity to explain to us from their perspective the reason as to why they have reached a stage in their life where they feel that coaching would be very beneficial for them, right? What they choose to tell us is completely down to them. But what you'll find is what they tell us will be very, very revealing because you have left that question open. They will give you their personal reasons as to why they have made the decision that they need coaching. You haven't asked them, why do you want a coach? Why do you need a coach? You have simply asked them, why are you here? Now, that also is open for interpretation in terms of the here. What does here actually mean? Does here mean in this virtual room sitting in front of this coach? Does here mean the stage in which they are at in their life? Does here mean the stage that they're at in terms of how they're thinking or feeling? It's completely open. Why are you here? And you know what? Here's another little tip or trick for you. And I do this all the time with my clients, right? I do this all the time. Anytime that you have a client that says to you, what do you mean? Right? And this is going to happen a lot. I always say to them, what was the first thing that popped into your head when I asked you that question? I don't re-clarify what I meant. Because if I go to re-clarify what I mean, then what I'm doing is I'm just putting myself in a position where I'm slapping on my own perspective onto that question. I'm slapping on my own viewpoint because I'm trying to explain to them what I meant from my point of view and my perspective. What's a lot more valuable is trying to understand how their subconscious mind interpreted the question. Because even when a client says to you, what do you mean, right? They still, even if it was only for a split second, they still would have created some form of answer to the question. Even if at that stage in their own mind, the answer might not be completely clear or completely coherent, or it might not make any sense. Their subconscious mind has given them an answer to the question. And the reason why clients stop, don't answer, and then say, what do you mean? Is they believe that the answer that they've currently got isn't an appropriate answer. But it is an appropriate answer because it's the answer that their subconscious mind has given them. So that's just a little tip for you. Whenever you ask your clients a question and they say, what do you mean? Respond with, what was the first thing that popped into your head when I asked you that question? And they will come up with something that they think is random, but actually it's very revealing because that's what their subconscious mind wants them to know. Question number 2 is a little variation of question number 1, but it makes it even more powerful. Why are you here now? And the emphasis is on the now. Because with question number 1, why are you here? They have been open. That question is open to interpretation. They have the freedom and there's no barriers. There's no restrictions. They can simply openly tell you the reason as to why they are there, sitting in front of a coach. When you then move on to question number 2, which is why are you here now? What we're doing is we're essentially saying, right, I understand why you're here because you've explained to me why you're here. But why now? And feel free with question number 2 to create your own variation of question number 2. Question number 2 may even be, I understand why you're here, but why now? Why is it important to you now? Why is this significant now? And when essentially what we're saying is, why now? Why not yesterday? Why not a year ago? Why not 2 years ago? Why not tomorrow? Why not next year? Why now? And the now is very, very, very important, right? Because there is a very specific moment in your client's life, right? There's a very specific moment where they have made the decision that now is the time. I can't wait any longer, and now is the time. Or the situation's got too bad, and now is the time. I can't handle this anymore, now is the time. I don't want to waste any more years, now is the time. And we want to know why now is the time. And the reason that we want to know that is because if we understand the catalyst for change that they have experienced, then we understand what helps them change, right? So question number 1 is, why are you here? And they're explaining the reason as to why they have sought the help of a coach. Question number 2 is, why are you here now? Which is, why now and not another time? What happened? What changed? What was the catalyst that made you think now is the time, right? So if we then understand what the catalyst was, maybe it was because I've just turned 50 and now I'm more conscious of time. Maybe it's because I've just had a baby and now I'm a parent. Maybe it's because the pain I was experiencing has now got too severe and I'm sick of it. I want it to change. Maybe it's because I've witnessed other people achieving success at my age and I want the same thing. It's not for us to decide, okay? It's not for us to determine. It's for our clients to tell us why now, okay? It's down to them to tell us why now. But once we know why now, we understand what creates enough of an emotional reaction inside of our clients that helps them make a change. That's going to be very useful for further on down the line. Later on down the line, when, as their coach, we're trying to help them create change. Because by simply only asking those 2 questions, we have fully understood their reasons and motivations for wanting to change, and also the reason and the catalyst for why they've made the decision to change right now. So this is what I wanted to be showing you guys. There's another 4 questions that I'm going to give you, but can you see how even just questions that might seem like very simple questions, when you give it enough thought as a coaching master, you can actually reveal so much about a person, so much more than what you thought. This is the power of questions. This is why questions are considered the coach's power tool. You know, you've got those, you know, when you walk down the street and you can see those guys like drilling into the pavement and they're like getting up all the concrete and they're laying pipe. They've got these big power tools, right? They're trying to get to the heart of the ground. That's what we're doing with questions. But it's only if you know how to use the power of the question. It's only if you really fully understand the purpose behind the question. And this is why at the Coaching Masters, why we're different to everybody else, because everyone else will teach you questions and say, ask your client these questions in this order. Blah, 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 blah. There you go. You've got a coaching structure. But fucking why though? Why? That's what we want to know. We want to know the real intricate details behind why the question is powerful. And already just with that, 2 questions. And actually those 2 questions are a variation of the same fucking question. Question number 1, why are you here? Question number 2, why are you here right now? I promise you guys, right? If you know the purpose behind those 2 questions, like we've just explained, you'll be able to get to the heart of your client quicker than 99.9% of all other coaches, because you know where you're going with that. You're not asking them those questions just for the sake of asking it. You're asking them the question to find out, right? Why exactly specifically have you decided to change? And what was the thing that made you decide to make that change as of today? And if you know those two things about your client, then you have excellent ammunition to use to help them create more changes as your relationship and your coaching relationship progresses. The third question is, in what way or in what ways specifically is this a problem for you? Now, the third question may seem complex, but it's not. What you'll find is, via question number 1 and question number 2, your client would have inevitably described a problem. Okay? Inevitably. If your client didn't have a problem, they wouldn't be sitting in front of you and they wouldn't be your client. That's an absolute fact. If your client considered their life to be perfection and their day-to-day process, their day-to-day routine, their daily life to be flawless with no problems, that type of person doesn't seek the help of a coach, right? People seek the help of a coach when they have found and felt and experienced a problem in which they want to change. So via question number 1 and question number 2, they're going to have explained what the problem is, right? Without a doubt. So with question number 3, what you're asking is, in what way specifically is that a problem for you, right? Whatever they've described to you via question number 1 and question number 2, that's what you relay back to them. For example, via question number 1 and 2, your client may be describing a very heated relationship with their partner that's full of turmoil, full of argument, full of stress and strain. If this is what we've received via question number 1 and 2, then we would say to them, in what way specifically is this relationship with your partner a problem for you? Now, again, they may have explained the problem. Well, they would have explained the problem with question 1 and 2. But what are we doing with question number 3? Specifics. Coaches love specifics. You cannot have too many of them, right? We cannot be too specific. So what we're doing is we're taking the problem that was given to us via questions number 1 and 2, and we're saying to them, essentially, be specific. How specifically is that a problem for you? Bart would say, would we use the word problem? We absolutely, definitely would use the word problem. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to uncover the heart of the issue. And if we tiptoe around it too much, then we're not going to really go for the jugular. We're not going to get into it. There is a problem. No doubt, right? We're not going to fuck about with this, right? That person is sitting in front of us as a client, right? In a vulnerable position, exposing this issue that they have to somebody that they have either just met or just signed up with a coaching package with. Undoubtedly, there's a problem. Because like I'd said before, if there wasn't a problem, there wouldn't be a client, right? If problems didn't exist, we would all be out of a job because people seek out the help of a coach when there's a problem. Now, does that mean that the severity of that problem is all the same? Definitely not, right? We're talking in terms of like a comparison. We could have variations of severity when it comes to the problem. Your client may consider themselves to have a problem because they've only made $1 million that year and they've not yet made 2 million. Or your client may consider themselves to have a problem because they've just lost both of their parents in a tragic accident and they're really having trouble dealing with that. It depends who you coach. It depends what your niche is. It depends what your speciality is. It depends the type of people that you tend to have as clients. Who knows what that person's problem is? It's not for me to determine. It's not from there to determine. However, what is absolutely clear that we cannot tiptoe around is that as far as the client is concerned, there's a fucking problem. And we want to uncover that ASAP. And if we tiptoe around it, we're not going to be uncovering it. We need to fucking rip the lid off of it. because that is what they pay us to do. They don't pay us just for nice conversation. They don't pay us to hold their hands. They don't pay us to just tiptoe around the issue. They pay us to say, right, let's fucking fix this. Let's work together to fix this. In what ways? This is what we're doing with question number 3. In what ways specifically is X a problem for you? Whatever they've given to us. We want them to reveal, and just to touch on your question as well, Bart, we want them to reveal the details of the problem, because it's only having the details of the problem, it's only by having that we can help change that. If we don't have the details of the problem, we don't exactly know what we're working with. And ultimately, right, if we're gonna strip down coaching in its most basic form, right, we are essentially there to help facilitate the solutions to problems. Really, like, we're not there to fix anything. And we're not there to give the answers or give the advice or give the guidance. We're not there to tell people what to do. But we are there to help facilitate solutions. And once again, with no problems, there's no need for a solution, right? And it's only a solution that can fix a problem. So yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So we need the specifics of the problem to help try to facilitate a solution. Question number 4 is when it gets a little bit deeper. Spend a bit more time with this. But what we're doing is we're trying to shock the foundation of which this problem is built. If you were to know, where did this come from? Now, again, I am 100% always open to variations of the question, okay? You could say, if you were to know, where did this problem come from? If you were to know, where did it come from? If you were to know, where did this experience come from, depending on what you're talking about. But essentially, this is what we're trying to find. We're trying to find where it originated from, right? Now, we are being quite specific in terms of saying, where did it come from? Not how did it begin, where did it start, who was the one that started it? Where did it come from? Where did it come from, again, is open enough that it's open for interpretation. If you were to know, where did it come from? Or if you were to know, where did this come from? If you were to know, where did the problem come from? Okay, where did it come from gives our client enough space to explain to us the origin of the problem. It may have come from a particular person, but we were not the ones to determine that. It may have come from a particular time in their life, but again, we were not the ones to determine that. It may have came from a particular experience, but we were not the ones to determine that. We just said, where did it come from? Also, the reason why that question is very powerful is because what we're doing is we're also making the assumption, right, that it came from somewhere. We're not making the assumption that this is a problem that your client would have had forever, right? Because the chances are they were not born with the problem. That doesn't mean that they were not born into something that could create a problem. But of course, everybody is born as a completely blank slate at first. You know, we don't have any limiting beliefs about ourselves. We don't have any, in that stage, don't have a culture, don't have a religion. We don't have a family. It's like we're just sort of like a clear whiteboard, right? Or a clear plate. Clear plate? I don't know if that's a fucking good term. So anyway, where did it come from? It gives our client enough open interpretation to tell us where the problem originated from, where it started from, right? And the reason why that's really, really interesting and powerful is because if we can get a clear understanding of where it came from, then we can get a clear understanding of how it started. And we can start to get a clear understanding of what were the reasons, what were the catalysts, what were the causes of this thing that our client is struggling with. Because all too often what happens is our clients firmly believe that this problem that they're experiencing, it's just the way things are. Well, that's just the way things are, right? Or the other one, it's always been that way. I mean, what a fucking generalization is that? It's always been like that. Or he or she has always been that way. Or I've always felt like this, right? Now, of course, we know actually it's not going to have been always, but it's going to have maybe been for a long time that this problem has existed. But what we want is we want to try to go to the beginning. right? So that's why where did this problem come from is a really, really powerful one. Then we move on to question number 5. Question number 5, again, is open for interpretation, but it allows our clients, this is one that undoubtedly your clients will say, what do you mean? And again, how do we respond to what do you mean? We say, what is the first thing that popped into your head when I asked you that question? The next question is, how do you act out this problem? And like I said before, your clients will definitely say, what do you mean by that? And just ask them, what was the first thing that popped into your head when I asked you that question? How do you act out this problem? So what we're trying to find here is we're trying to do a couple of different things. We're allowing our client, we're putting our client in a position to realize that there must be, on some level, some form of responsibility that they bring to the problem. Because the problem at the moment exists, and even though they don't want it to exist, or they want it to exist in a different way, they are contributing in some way to the existence of the issue they're experiencing by simply existing, by simply being a part of it. So there has to be a way in which they act out the problem, right? Now, again, it's going to be up for them to determine, but maybe they shy away from it. Maybe they ignore it. Maybe they tackle it head on. Maybe they throw fuel on the fire and they make it worse. Maybe they try to be a peacekeeper, but that's not been working. What we want to know, essentially, with this question is, how are you approaching the problem right now? How are you approaching it? How do you act it out? How do you live it? How do you allow it to be a part of who you are, what you do, where you are? Right? So again, you can create variations of that question. But what we want to do is we want to allow them to see that in some way they are a part of it. By simply being there, they're a part of it. And also by asking them that question, it really allows them to sort of step out of themselves and think, how do I act out this problem? How do I step into it? How do I contribute towards it? Do I shy away from the problem? Do I tackle it head on? Am I too aggressive? Am I too soft? Am I acting out this problem by emphasizing it or overemphasizing it? Or am I underemphasizing it? Am I throwing it under the rug, or am I blowing it up out of proportion? Who knows, right? Again, it's difficult to give personal examples because every person is completely different. But how do you act out this problem? That's definitely going to be a question that nobody has asked them in the past. A lot of the time, if they're sort of trying to be consoled from friends or family, they're going to be getting the usual bullshit of like, oh, well, it's all right, mate, just ignore it. But they're not ever going to really sort of fully understand, how do I step into it? How do I act it out? How do I make it a part of me? How am I involved in this? You know, there's a lot of empowerment behind realizing that we have empowerment and responsibility and a part to play in everything to do with our own lives. Even if we feel like control has been completely taken away from us, there's an element of a part in which we play. So trying to get our clients to the point of understanding that is very empowering. And again, that one is almost like it's a bit of a pattern interrupt question as well. It's just to sort of not throw them off, but it's just to kind of jar their thought process and their mindset. And just a bit, right? Just enough to keep the cogs turning, right? But then we finish with question number 6. We've taken our clients on a bit of a journey here, right? Taken them on a bit of a journey. And again, already with these first 5 questions, the chances are these are going to be 5 questions that this person has not been asked before. And the reason why that's really empowering and very, very important is because what we're trying to do as coaches is we're trying to allow our clients to develop a different perspective, a different viewpoint, a different mindset, right? And we're going to be going on that journey, even with those first 5 questions. We're going to be allowing them to shift their perspective around what it is they're experiencing, by simply just seeing it from a different angle to what they're not used to. But then we finish with the 6th question, which is, what do you want instead? Right? Now, we've done a lot of exploration around the problem in which they're experiencing, the reason as to why they're there, the reason as to why they're there now, specifically why it's a problem, understanding where the problem came from, understanding how they act out the problem, So we've done a lot of focus on the issue at hand, which at first is definitely something we should be doing because we need to gain a greater understanding of the issue. But then, of course, we never want to be leaving our clients in a situation like that, right? We never want to be leaving them in a situation like that. So then we finish it off with question number 6, which is, what do you want instead? Okay, so we've been like problem. Shift perspective. However, what do you really want instead? We understand this is a problem. We understand that it's not good. We understand that it's gotten so bad that you've decided to seek out a coach right now. We understand where it comes from. We understand the way in which you allow it to be part of your life. We understand how you act it out. But what do you want instead? And that's when then we have a completely different mind shift away from the problem that they're experiencing to the solution that we're now going to find. Because the solution lies within the answer to question number 6. What do you want instead? It's like, okay, well, I understand all of that, and that's not good, and that's what I'm currently experiencing. But what I want instead of that is this. This is what I want instead of that. It's like maybe the problem is that damaged relationship that we spoke about before, that damaged partnership that's tense and angry. And actually what I want instead of that is just open communication. It's just love and understanding. It's just a calm environment. Whatever your client answers to question number 6, that then can be used to lead you down a path for the rest of your coaching journey together. Because the answers that they've given you to question number 6, that will indicate, of course, what it is they want, right? What it is they're looking for. And then as their coach, you can help them find ways of facilitating what it is they actually want. And you can help them find ways of finding solutions to what it is they actually want. So those are the 6 questions that would be very, very important and very, very powerful for you to all ask your new clients to gain a great understanding of who they are, where they are, what they're experiencing, and what they want instead. So just to remind you, the questions are: question number 1, why are you here? Question number 2, why are you here now? Question number 3, in what ways specifically is that a problem for you? And of course, we're referring to the problem that they've given us via questions number 1 and 2. Question number 4, if you were to know, where did this come from? Question number 5, how do you act out this problem? And question number 6, what do you want instead? If you were to ask what you could honestly do, guys, right? You could decide that your first ever session with a brand new client is only those 6 questions. And you could ask them variations of those questions, and you could ask them other supplementary questions in between those 6, such as, tell me more about that, explain that to me. But you know what? You honestly could make those 6 questions last an entire coaching session. As long as you've got the 6 questions in your head and you know that that is the direction that you're taking your clients down, then it doesn't matter if you get a bit lost. It doesn't matter if you ask them other questions. It doesn't matter if they go off on a bit of a tangent, because what you've got inside of your head is you've got a very solid, specific structure of 6 questions. And each of those 6 questions have a different purpose and a different reason. And you could be thinking, right, all I need to do is make sure that I lead them on to the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one until eventually we find out what it is they want instead. And then that can be our point of focus for next session, right? So very, very, very powerful 6 questions. So Bart says, as a coach, would you actively challenge generalizations or keep a note of them? That is a brilliant question, Bart. And that brings up a couple of different things, right? You absolutely would challenge generalizations. And the reason why you would challenge generalizations is because unless you challenge them, they remain unchallenged. And if they remain unchallenged, they remain strong. And we can't have them remaining strong because if our client has a generalization that is not serving them, and remember, that has to be the main focus. The generalization that they have, is it a generalization about people, places, events, or things? Is that generalization actually serving them and making their life richer? If yes, it is, leave it alone. If it's damaging their life and it's making their life poorer in one way or another, then we want to challenge it. But the second point that it brings up is, how do we challenge? How do we challenge? It's always good and mindful to challenge generalizations and challenge your clients. Not too hard, because we don't want it to be argumentative. We don't want it to be defensive. We don't want it to be offensive. Yeah, we don't want to be doing it too hard, but at the same time, we don't want to just tiptoe around our clients because we want them to like us. We're there to help them, right? That's why we're there. That's the only reason why we're there. So by challenging those generalizations, it will help them, but we need to do it in a smart way.